The Spectra 1 and the Spectra 2 are some of the most popular pumps on the market and have been for quite a long time. Anytime I see a favorites list, I often see the Spectra 1 or the Spectra 2 on the top of it. But it's 2025. So let's talk about, there's a lot of pumps on the market, okay? Does the Spectra still hold up? And we'll kind of talk about some pros and cons, some of the unique features of this pump, and go from there. If you're looking to get a breast pump, there's a really nice quiz down below. I encourage you to do that. We'll help you explore which pumps may be the best for you if you're looking for a second pump or something like that. If you have this pump, I'm going to walk you through how to use it, some of the features that it has, so you should be able to walk right in and use it really efficiently. We did a video on the Spectra 1, I think 4 years ago on the channel. We've been doing breast pumps a long time. One of our most popular videos on the channel. And so I want to update it today for you so that you have some new information and we can kind of go from there. If you're new here, my name is Allison Tolman. I'm a breast pump expert and a coach for working moms. I'm also the founder of the Pumping for Working Moms program, which is a long-term coaching program designed to help career-driven women balance pumping and their careers successfully. If that's something you're interested in, then there's a link down below. We talk a lot about breast pumps on this channel, so hopefully you're subscribed and pumping will be part of your life. But let's dive into the Spectra. I think the best place to start is to identify the differences between the Spectra 1, which is the blue one, and the Spectra 2, which is the pink one. The only difference, they're exactly the same. Okay, there's two differences. One is the color, and two, the Spectra 1 has a built-in battery. So the pink one, the Spectra 2, does have to be plugged in for use. Otherwise, they are identical. So we often see the Spectra 2 as being a cheaper option, a little bit more affordable, just because it doesn't have that battery feature. Sometimes on like a DME website, or if you're getting this pump through your insurance, we'll see that the Spectra has a little bit of upgrade fee. Sometimes it's a small upgrade fee, and sometimes it's like $100, which makes no sense to me because I think there's like a $30 difference in these pumps if you're buying them online, $40 maybe. So anyway, kind of funny there, but that's literally the only difference, is that one has a battery, one does not. I guess this one might be a little heavier since it has a battery, but that makes sense. Not a lot. I think if you're thinking about, do we need a battery? We actually talk about that in one of our webinars. I'll put a link down below, but I think you often end up wanting the battery feature more often than you think. You'd be surprised at how many times you just need to pick up the pump and go somewhere else, or if you want to use it in the car, or I don't know, there's a lot of different reasons. So I always tend to recommend the S1 with the battery, but that's just me. Okay, let's talk about suction, because this is an important topic. We actually developed a device a couple years ago to test all these breast pumps. I think there's about 100 breast pumps in my closet next door to me. Here we test a lot of pumps, we play with a lot of things. I wanted a way to share more objective data with you and graphs and things like that. So let's talk about that on the Spectra specifically, because I know this is a well-loved pump. The suction on this pump is solid. All right, single pumping, I can get as high as 300 mmHg, which is plenty of suction. And then when double pumping, I can still reach levels around 220 mmHg. And that might sound like a pretty big dip downward, but that's actually a really acceptable range of suction decrease when you start pumping 2 instead of just 1. So still plenty of suction for you. You're not going to have a hard time getting a good suction with this pump. If you want more information about suction numbers and what that all means, I'll put a video down below kind of walking you through the metrics that we're talking about here. Next, I want to talk about cycle speeds, because this is an important part of a pump working well. And you do have quite a few different options on the Spectra, which is kind of nice. Okay, in stimulation mode, the set cycle speed is 70. All right, so that is kind of the lowest that I like to see in stimulation mode when we're trying to initiate that letdown, but 70 is just fine. And I think the suction pattern of this pump, the vibration style, really helps us feel even faster than that. I will talk about the pattern in just a second, but it'll be set at 70, and then you can adjust the vacuum from there. It's a little loud because there's nothing hooked up to it, but it's not actually too loud in use. So you can adjust the suction up to 12 levels, I think, which is kind of fun. There's a little button in the middle. It kind of looks like a piece of bacon. So sometimes I'll hear people call that the bacon button as well. When they're like, I'm in bacon mode. That's stimulation mode. That's the first mode. You can call it what you want though. So if you press that button, it will switch into expression mode. All right. And you have several different cycle speed options available in expression mode. Sometimes pumps will have the different speeds as like 1, 2, 3, or 4. You just get to pick slow to fast. This one actually tells you the numbers. So you can start with a cycle speed of 38, and that's 38 cycles per minute. Okay, so it's going to go a little bit slower, and the suction will be It's a little bit longer pull, if that makes sense. You can also do 42, 46, 50, and 54. So you can hear that's a little bit faster. I'll turn it up a little so you can hear it. Okay, so that's 54. It'd be a faster, shorter pull. And some people respond really well to that. Versus a slower, a little bit longer pull. And you can kind of just play around and figure out which one works best for you. If you're just pulling out this pump for the first time, you don't know where to start somewhere in the middle, like 46. There you go. And then you can just kind of play and adjust as needed. This pump also does have a little light here, so if you're using it by your bedstand, that's actually a really nice feature as well. You can do single and double pumping, okay? There is a little valve right here that's really important. It's also kind of hard to find a replacement part for this piece, but if you want to do just single pumping, you will, which is just pumping one side for anyone who doesn't know what that term is. You'll just hook up the suction tube to that one. But that little cap has to be on the bottom or it's not gonna work, all right? If you want to do both breasts at the same time, which is probably what a lot of people do, you just pull off that cap and hook a second set of tubing to it, okay? But you do have to have that cap if you wanna do one side at a time. The tubing and the flange kit on this pump are super generic, which I love, right? So you can cut this tubing, it has no adapters if you wanted it shorter because it's just a standard piece of tubing, okay? So let's run through this flange kit really quick. Kind of talk about how to put it together. This is a great example of just a flange kit though, because it's so, like I said, it's so standard and generic. Wide mouth bottle, okay? The Spectra pumps like to use this duckbill style valve. So you need this valve to close the suction loop. So every time the pump is cycling, it's going to be opening and closing like this. And you want it to be able to do that. If your duckbill is stuck open like this, then it's probably time to replace that part, okay? But that'll just go right on the bottom here. I really like the Spectra pump and its parts, to be honest. One thing I don't like is I've noticed that sometimes the Spectra brand flanges, they kind of taper in the tunnel, which I don't love. It makes it hard to put an insert in for sizing, and I don't love what that does to the nipple as it's moving inside the tunnel. So this is actually a Spectra brand flange, and it doesn't do that. But I have seen some that do that. And so if you get one that kind of tapers down, if it works for you, it's fine, but it's not my favorite. So I often end up switching out these parts for just some really generic stuff that you can find on Amazon, like Maymom brand or Nini Supply. There's several. You'll see this same setup in a lot of different options. And I also like the ones where the shield, this part here, comes off, because then you can put a different size on and get your flange size right. Okay, I'll put another video down below on flange sizing. But I always like to use the hard sized ones versus inserts when I can. And then you have a backflow protector, and this is a closed pump. So this is going to keep the milk from going into the tubing, okay? It's going to keep the milk inside the flange and bottle and not into the tubing and motor of the pump. So you have 3 pieces here. You're going to put this soft silicone piece on the one side, and the edges kind of snap around, all right? The edges don't snap around on the other side, so you're not going to get it around. So I'm going to snap that on there, and then these will go together as well. If this piece comes apart really easily, well, that one doesn't. See, it's kind of stuck on there. But you will see, like, you'll be like, oh, this comes apart really easy. It's time to replace that soft silicone part. Or you just get a whole new of this little piece right here, okay? Because it has to be clicked in well, or it's not going to suction right, okay? You also can't mess up this part because one side does not fit on it, okay? So do the other side. Just a short little twist to make sure that that's really on there. And then the other side of the tubing, okay? You will need to wash everything, put the bottle on there too. You will need to wash all of this, okay? We never wash the tubing, we don't want water in there, but you will need to wash this whole kit, and you'll need to pull that all apart and wash that as well, because milk will be in contact with that side there. I guess technically you don't have to wash this outer piece, but just like chuck it all in and wash it, okay? So really easy and simple setup there. They do have a little container in the back that's meant to hold a flange if you're, like, you can put it there while you're kind of dealing with your milk. This one for some reason doesn't fit. It's an off-brand bottle here. A lot of moms use this instead for snacks, like M&Ms and Oreos and things. I have heard that like 3 Oreos fit really, really well in there. That was probably one of the most comments we got on our last video, is all of the creative things that moms like to put in their little holder right there. That was not the bottle. So really fun. Okay, the suction pattern of this pump is really unique, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to put a graph up here for you so that you can check it out, but this pump has a vibration style pattern, and this is what a lot of moms really like about it, is it has kind of a vibration feel to it, kind of a triple burst. It's kind of going with each burst that it's doing. A lot of people respond really well to that. There are a few people that don't respond really well to that, and that would be if you have sensory issues, so if you get overloaded with sensory things quite often, or if you're prone to vasospasms, that's kind of a restriction of the blood flow in the small vessels like that. That can trigger those to be a little bit worse. But for the most part, people really love the vibration style pattern that comes on the Spectra. It also kind of makes, especially the letdown mode, feel a little bit faster. And I think that's why it works so well, even though it's on the kind of the slower end of what we like to see. I actually have never talked to anyone at the Spectra company. They're kind of a hard company to get in touch with and do that. But I have a feeling that they accidentally created a really awesome pump, and it just has worked for like a really, really long time. The thing I do love about it though is that they have not made changes, right? Sometimes we see good pumps come out and then companies will switch manufacturers or switch where they're getting their parts or something like that. And then we see major changes. The Motiva Luna is a good example of that. A couple years ago, they made some changes silently, and then all of a sudden moms were like, this pump is not what you said it was. And I'm like, well, it is different now. They seriously changed it. So that is something I like about this pump. It's been around for a long time, and they just have not really made any changes. Don't mess with a good thing. And I actually appreciate that. There is also a really cool feature on this pump where you can check the hours that it's been used. And it's a fancy combination of these buttons in some kind of X. I will put a link down below with a little download to give you like a cheat sheet on how to do that, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But you can check the hours and see how many hours it's used. This is nice when maybe you used it for your last pregnancy and you're pulling it out again. We have talked on this channel before about used breast pumps, and I'll put a video down below. You can learn more. But if it's a used pump or, from a friend or a sister or something and you wanted to check the hours on it, you certainly could. Just as a summary, I always recommend getting new pumps. Used pumps have kind of some of their funny things to consider there, but you can check the hours on it, and so that's pretty cool. Okay, let's do some pros and cons real quick, and then I'll just share my final thoughts on if this is still a good breast pump that I would recommend in 2025, where we do have so many options on the market right now. Some of the pros are this is a high quality pump that's likely to work for almost everyone. So if you are a brand new pumper, if you've never pumped before, if you are just looking for the most reliable option, this is a really safe choice. We often see it covered by insurance companies a lot too, which is great. It has really generic parts. It has settings that you can adjust. And so really, really safe, easy to use option for you there. I think the biggest con about this pump is the size and weight. It's just big and bulky. And I don't love the shape, to be honest. It gets a little awkward putting it in a bag, but I've found plenty of bags that work really well for it. But it is big and heavy. That might be a problem for you, but it also might outweigh the pros of having a reliable pump that efficiently removes milk. So kind of weigh those pros and cons there. So overall, if I'm looking at all of the breast pumps in my closet over here for 2025, the Spectra 1 and or 2, they're very similar, is still pretty near the top of my list. So this pump, like I said, has been on the top of the list for a while, and I don't see any reason to take it off. It still works really, really well. I recommend this pump pretty often. Anytime a mom comes to me and she's having pumping struggles and saying that she's using a Spectra 1, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at some of the other things, because I can pretty reliably rule out that your pump is probably working well. And again, there's always outliers. If the pump has a ton of hours on it, or if it's not set up correctly, or things like that, then we troubleshoot that real quick. But this isn't a pump that we have to replace very often for moms. So anytime it's not working, or if you're maxing out the suction on it, it's a huge red flag to me that something else in the pumping art might be going on. And that's kind of what we specialize in, especially with the working moms that we do work with, is helping them really understand pumping, really understand their milk supply in their body and how that all works together for them so that they can focus on and thrive in their career while pumping is still part of their life while they meet their breastfeeding goals. So again, if that is the kind of long-term coaching help you're looking for, there is an application down below. But I think at the end of the day, this is a really high quality pump. And again, I have no problem with the Spectra 2 either. So if that's the one you've got, great. The only limitation there is that you do have to be plugged in, but sometimes it's not a big deal. So yeah, I would say still at the top of my list. Maybe not like the number one, but very close up there in the top 5 for sure. especially for new pumpers or someone who's never pumped. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Have you used this pump? Did you like it? What didn't you like? I always love exploring the comments down there, and this would be a good thing for you to do too if you're thinking about this pump or trying to use it. There'll be a lot of really good information down there from the users. So good luck to you and happy pumping.